I don't know why he's blocking me though, fellas. I'm being totally honest with you. I don't know what.
When did you find
what
out?
Could I be?
Because
one day I wanted to see one of his tweets. Like I think because I wasn't following somebody. Somehow I knew there was something special. Maybe I saw somebody quote his tweet in an article or something.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to go see the tweet. Did it click tweets?
There's
this
something
user,
you did. No.
Did you?
You did something to get blocked.
What could I have done? Literally,
You said something
Dayo.
to him.
We
to
literally
get blocked.
spent 8 hours today arguing
Yes.
over some randomness.
But what can I say to Matthew Berry that'll make him be like? That'll make him be like.
You said something.
I gotta block this dude.
But like, why would he just randomly block you?
The thing is, I don't talk to celebrities on Twitter. Like I just don't. I feel like
you maybe you tweeted something out.
Maybe I tweeted something. I quote tweeted and I was like, man, look at this. Like maybe I said something like this player sucks or something. I mean, I'm not gonna say something about Matthew
something
Berry.
disrespectful.
I don't think it was disrespectful. I wouldn't say nothing about him though.
Why don't you take this time right now to apologize to Matthew?
No,
Berry?
hell no, hell no.
I said, God, give me a warning. Please take me for the morning, so I leave more disappointments than I ever will appointments. Give a fuck about your feelings, rub it in. This your ointment can't depend on the oinker. Find your
Welcome to First and 15, the only podcast that's trying to get you paid. I'm here with two-time FFPC champion AB. Alongside him is our dynasty guru, Dayo the Machine. Guys, I want to talk about news first. Let's talk about Devontae Smith out 2 to 3 weeks with the Eagles. Receiving core that's already thin. Is that relevant or irrelevant?
Oh, it's absolutely relevant. You have a young quarterback. You have a rookie wide receiver, albeit from Alabama. Exceptionally skilled. He seems to be quite the professional from what we're hearing from camp. But you can't make up for lost practice reps, especially on a new team, learning a new system. So it's going to hurt to some degree. There's only so many weeks in training camp. But he was going fairly high to begin with. You know, I think a lot of us have this idea that we're going to catch the next Justin Jefferson. Mm-hmm. And I've definitely drafted him in the late 7th round, 8th round. But, you know, maybe we were drafting him too high. So hopefully this depresses his ADP where you can get him at a better value, maybe where he should be going. But this also opens the door for other players. I think everybody starts to think about Jalen Reagor. I actually think it opens the door for more of a guy like Fulgham, who's been completely forgotten. I actually think he's the guy who probably would see, an uptick in targets with Devontae Smith missing a few weeks of training camp. Now, it sounds like it's a grade 1, so he should be back, by week 1, but you never really know with these things. You definitely have to be cautious. I'm not drafting him as a starter. I would, at this point, just be drafting him as a backup. And it's going to have a trickle-down effect because, again, you have this young quarterback who's getting reps with a lot of other receivers and a lot of other receiving options, such as tight ends and running backs. We're already hearing that he's doing, a fairly decent job of hitting his running backs out of the backfield. We're hearing talks of Miles Sanders and Boston Scott. And we're also hearing that, I hate to say it, he's developing a rapport with both of his tight ends, especially, Zach Ertz. Please get traded. Please get traded.
Right.
But so I think it, it's not a good thing.
Yeah. Well, Devontae Smith isn't the only receiver who's injured, who's out, missing time in camp. Amari Cooper is also sidelined right now. Looks like he got his ankle surgery, just a minor cleanup in January, but it's still out right now. Dayo, is that relevant or irrelevant for this supposedly loaded Cowboys team?
It's relevant, of course. I mean, an injury, like we discussed about last week, with these injuries, especially when they have these kind of ambiguous timelines as far as when they're going to return, starts to make you wonder, number one, if he's going to be back in time for the season opener. And number two, when he does come back, is he going to be at full strength? Is he going to be somebody that's effective, or is he going to still be kind of working his way back? All those things are really, unknowns at this moment. I think the way people are drafting him now, they are drafting him closer to his ceiling than his floor. The back end 3rd, early 4th. So people are optimistic, or they were at least drafting him optimistically. Now, I think once this news kind of becomes a little bit more mainstream, because I'm not sure it's there yet. Once it becomes a little bit more mainstream, once they start saying he's not playing in these preseason games or he's not practicing closer to the beginning of the season, I think his ADP is going to start to tank. Maybe not tank, but definitely go down a round or so when you look at the other wide receivers going there. So definitely it's relevant. I'm not touching Amari Cooper because this is an injury that goes back to last year. And you would have thought after all this time, it is, it's had enough time to heal and he's ready to kind of get back to doing what he's doing. We're already hearing about how CeeDee Lamb is like going crazy at camp. Hard Knocks is there too.
Yeah.
Once Hard Knocks starts showing all this, CeeDee Lamb is probably going to even shoot up higher in the boards, and with no Amari Cooper, he's going to probably go even lower. So definitely, it's relevant. But one quote I did want to say before we move on, I going back to what Abby was just saying, I like Devontae Smith still, and there's a few reasons. Again, they do expect him to be back soon. Again, like I just said, timelines can be ambiguous, but at least they have a feeling it's not going to be a long-term injury. So I'm not really concerned too much as far as him being ready for the season. But the reason I do like him is, number one, he kind of already has the rapport with Jalen Hurts. They went to college together for a couple years. Jalen Hurts was one of the first people we talked to when he was drafted. We heard all offseason they were kind of practicing together. So the rapport is there. And then number two, as far as the reports when he was practicing, they said he was running his routes pretty well. He was impressing a lot of people. Regardless of what people say as far as opinion, they did mention one thing that stuck out to me, and they said every receiver drill, he was the first one in line. It's like he's already taken the mantle as being the leader in that receiver room. You look at the other options, Rieger, high draft pick, but Fulgham. I like Fulgham, but last year he let Alshon Jeffrey come back and kind of have the coaches kind of put him on the bench or not play him as much. And then you have these other tight ends, but as far as field stretcher, that's Devontae Smith. So before this injury, I was seeing him going back in 6, maybe even mid-6, early 7th. Now I recently drafted him back in 7th. Maybe I could have waited. He could have went to the early 8th, but I wasn't going to risk it too much because I feel like I'm already kind of getting him at a slight discount.
That's a good spot.
And at the end of the day, he is going to be the number one wide receiver for a team that's probably going to have to play, high-scoring games. And he's the one that has that style where he can have these blow-up games, so.
And he can be a possession receiver.
Yeah.
And now you said something that I've seen a lot on Twitter lately, which is paying attention to who's first in position drills. To me, that sort of seems like a situation as like, all right, like the kid who's, sitting on the first row at class is the smartest kid in class. It's like, no, like just because he takes the mantle of going through the drills first doesn't necessarily mean. With
that analogy, it kind of is that, because if you look at it as the kid that's in the first row, guess who the teacher tends to favor most of the time? The kid sitting at the front in the first chair.
It's a small piece of the puzzle. It's not everything.
It's that alpha dog mentality. It's that, look, everybody know I'm the man.
Yeah. But I again, I think you made some excellent points on Devontae Smith, and if you're getting him back in the 7th, 8th round, that's ideal. But just the reason that I kind of bring up the caution and the fact that it's relevant is if he starts off slow, understand that he missed some time in camp, and it may take him a while to get acclimated.
Yeah.
Exactly. So be patient with them. These type of players you have to be patient with. I want to say.
What do you think about Amari Cooper, though? I want to hear what you guys say about that.
So I know you're a Lamb guy.
Yeah.
And I like
I almost
Lamb.
forgot CeeDee Lamb's last name. I was like, wait, I like CeeDee, not like, that's CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah.
I'm a CeeDee guy.
He's already reached a status where
First name basis.
CeeDee. So
he has his own emoji.
Yeah.
CeeDee.
So, I like Lamb, and there's been a lot of kind of discussion on Twitter regarding, if his ADP is appropriate.
Where's his ADP right now? Because I think I'm hearing it going.
He's going
like
early
third.
Yeah, early third.
That's too high for me.
Exactly. So I think it's always important to put in context when you say I really like somebody, because I really like CeeDee Lamb, but I don't like taking him over someone like who's going in that someone like an AJ Brown. Someone like a Keenan Allen.
AJ Brown.
Exactly.
I love Keenan Allen.
And I know you're not a Terry McLaurin guy, but for me, I prefer Terry McLaurin. So, but if you're taking him mid-third, late third, to me that's within his ADP within that tier. I can't argue that. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But getting back to Amari Cooper, Had a chance to talk with our sports injury specialist, Dr. Carlos Reyes. He feels like he's not concerned. And I'll let you guys know this, that Carlos is very conservative, which I like because we talked about it before. I'm that optimistic drafter, they say he's, only going to miss 5 to 12 weeks. That means he's coming back week 4, And so he puts things into perspective, into more likely outcome. And so when it came to Amari Cooper, he felt that given Amari Cooper's history of being able to play through injury, being able to play through pain, and the type of procedure that was done, removing just this bone spur, he says anticipate that he will miss most, if not all, of the preseason games, but that he should be ready to go week 1. And why is that important? Because you mentioned it earlier. We should expect to see his ADP to fall. And so what am I going to do?
Scoop him up.
Buy that dip.
Yeah,
I'm going to buy the dip.
Does he think when he comes back he's going to be at full strength?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So
it's an ankle injury, right?
No, so I think he had an issue with plantar fasciitis, and I don't want to get...
It's a foot injury.
Yeah, it's a foot injury.
Okay.
And so it was really a bone spur that he had removed. So it's not like he had a
Got
ligament repair or anything like that, but he just had some irritation.
I saw a report today where they said, okay, he had the surgery, he was coming back, he was healing up, and he was starting to practice, but then he started to get discomfort in his foot. So it's almost like he had a slight, we could call it a setback to some extent, right?
Yeah.
So
but a different set. So it's a setback. In this situation, I am less concerned about. I think it's still important, but I'm less concerned about that type of setback versus if I hear that with someone who had a ligament or tendon repair, like an Achilles repair, or Saquon Barkley with an ACL.
Gotcha. You know the crazy thing about the Cowboy situation, and I know I'm going off a tangent, but the crazy thing about that is, we look at Amari not practicing, and we're like, dang, he's missing reps, he's missing the ability to get the install of the new offense, and he's getting just game ready.
Yeah.
But then I'm thinking, okay, he's not getting that rapport with his quarterback. But then I think, wait, his quarterback's not there either.
And I'm thinking the same thing in Baltimore.
Exactly.
So that's important.
He's not even building a rapport with Dak.
Yeah.
Dak, even if he was there, he wouldn't be building a rapport. And then on the other end, CD is not building the rapport with Dak either. So then I'm like, wait, should I be as high on CD?
And I have no issues with the videos being posted. I love to see highlight videos. But I take nothing at all from a CeeDee Lamb highlight being thrown by the QB2, the QB3. To me, it means nothing, especially when he's the only wide receiver, and especially against that particular.
No, don't sleep on Michael Gallup, man.
So what?
Michael Gallup.
Yeah. No, but Michael Gallup was actually out for a while.
Really?
With
Okay.
I think he may be back now. I actually just drafted. I'm not a huge Michael Gallup guy, but I actually just drafted him in the main event.
If he gets opportunity, man, he has a very high ceiling, man.
And this is the thing. This is the kicker. Okay, so. And you never want to just draft a guy banking on an injury, but if someone is currently injured, I'll put this in quotation marks for Amari Cooper, but if someone is currently injured, maybe they're more likely to get a re-injury or aggravation. So you can think to yourself that, man, if something happens to Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, of course, is deserved of maybe a early round 2 pick at that point. And Gallup, who's going in the 8th, 9th round right now.
So wait, you're saying that you would take CD higher if you knew Amari wasn't in the picture?
If Amari had a more serious injury that I was kind of concerned about, I would be taking CeeDee Lamb.
Let's go to the
top
extreme.
of
If Amari was out for the season,
I would be taking.
Who would you taking CD over? Or who would you not take CD over?
CeeDee Lamb would be in the range of DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley. I would take him over A.J. Brown. I would take him over Keenan Allen.
So you would take him back in second.
So back in
second. And he would basically be neck and neck with Justin Jefferson. I would probably give CeeDee the Lamb over Justin Jefferson.
So back in second, early third, because Jefferson's going like early third.
Yeah.
So a little bit of a bump up, not a lot, because he's already going mid.
It would be now. Like he would end up in the mid second, and I would have no issues taking him in the mid second.
So a whole round bump up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's talk about the Colts for a second, because we've been talking about injuries for a while. Obviously, everybody has been talking about Carson Wentz being out for 5 to 12 weeks. I don't want to talk about that for a second. Something that's kind of gone under the radar is that this offensive line seems decimated. What does that mean for Jonathan Taylor, who's going really high in the first round, or mid to late first round? How does this affect those people, those positions around that offensive line?
Yeah, man, that's critical. I think that's a topic that definitely some people are talking about, but I think it needs to be at the top of the list, even more so above Carson Wentz. Because, getting to Carson Wentz, we're expecting him to miss anywhere between 5 and 12 weeks. And again, talking with Dr. Reyes, our sports injury expert, he basically felt like it's more likely that Carson Wentz is out until about week 7. And he presents things in ranges. So it's, when we're talking about injuries, and Dayo's brought this up in the past, some players come back quicker. We never know. But based on his knowledge, based on his expectations, he sees Carson Wentz coming back around week 7. So he's seeing a little bit longer of a timetable. So already in my mind, I'm thinking that, okay, at the very, least, we're looking at the higher end of that range of the 5 to 12 weeks. So I think the idea of him being back in a month and a half, to me is unlikely, and I'm just sort of kind of eliminating that, from my, when drafting Colts players. So we don't know who's going to be at quarterback, okay? We're hearing about Jacob Eason, okay? Has not really gotten a lot of reps in practice and games, et cetera. He was a rookie last year. We're hearing a lot of things out of camp, and they have a good defense. But we're hearing that he's, struggling a bit. I think today he had maybe a little bit better day, which we would anticipate, but we heard it's been an extreme struggle. They also have someone called Sam Ellinger. I'm a, Longhorn alum, so I'm very familiar with him. My money would actually be on him, to be quite honest. I'm not going to my money would be on him because he gives you more from a standpoint of being able to run a conservative offense, okay? But even with that being said, they may still bring in a veteran quarterback. We've heard talks of them trading for Nick Foles, Phillip Rivers, although I think, he said he's not coming back until, his season finishes on the high school level. And there are other veterans out there that they could trade for as well. So a lot of question marks there. But again, getting back to it, the major issue is that offensive line. Okay, so they lost their left tackle last year, Costanza. Okay, and he had some injuries, but they lost him. And they replaced him with Eric Fisher from the Chiefs, who's coming off an Achilles injury. And he tore his Achilles, I think, in the AFC Championship game.
Right.
So he's not that far removed. And they say he's supposed to be back like sometime mid-late August, but we still don't know. Okay, he's still currently on the PUP. But the biggest – Kelly, their center, has got a little bit of an elbow injury, and he's out for a few weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, he's out a few weeks.
He's going to be back before the season opener?
He should be back, but, they say he's out. So he's out, last report, I think it was a few days ago, out 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
But the biggest one, Quentin Nelson,
Yeah, guard.
literally probably one of the best linemen in the NFL, playing the guard position. What does that mean for a running back? We talked about, Wyatt Teller?
Yeah.
And then how we were all over Chubb once Wyatt Teller came back, and then he just blew up.
Yeah.
That's how I view Quentin Nelson. You remove Quentin Nelson from the equation, then this whole talk about Jonathan Taylor being, behind the scenes elite offensive line is done.
Right.
And what injury did Quentin Nelson have? He had the same injury as Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
And so, when I was talking with Carlos, he was telling me, Carlos is Dr. Rey's first name. When I was talking with Carlos, he was telling me that he would expect a little bit longer, maybe a few more weeks of recovery from an offensive lineman, given how much weight he has to put on that foot.
Wow.
And that foot being in a very, kind of dependent position, or a position that's not ideal for recovery. So, Quentin Nelson's a large man. If he had the same procedure that Carson Wentz had, we're looking at a potential issue where he may be out, a significant amount of games into the season. So, how does that tie into Jonathan Taylor? Jonathan Taylor, to me, was kind of in that Nick Chubb tier. And when I say tier, I don't mean from a ranking standpoint, but I mean from, how I evaluate and draft players. I loved Nick Chubb because he was in an offense and behind an offensive line in a system that was going to run very efficiently and be in positive game scripts. So everyone was always making this argument, well, he has to be super efficient for him to pay off his value. And I brought up the stats before about how when he returned from injury, if you just, I think it was like a 8-9 game sample, if you just extrapolate that over 16 games, he finishes at the top 5 running back for like the last 3 years, or very, very close to it. So we've already seen him at that efficiency with Kareem Hunt, okay? So that's what I was buying. That's what I was buying with Jonathan Taylor. I understand the issues with Nyheim Hines, but my thought process was that he is behind a very elite offensive line in a competent system,
Yeah.
and I expected this team to be in a lot of positive game script situations. So I was buying the efficiency. I didn't think that he needed a lot of volume to pay off that ADP. And again, I wasn't high on him. I wasn't taking him in the mid to early first. He was more of a he's falling to the second. I'm grabbing the second, and I got him second round in a main event tournament a few weeks back.
Would you draft him as high as the 10 hole?
So now where I have him, I wouldn't draft. I would players that I would draft over Jonathan Taylor, obviously Antonio Gibson, obviously Saquon Barkley. We've had that discussion plenty of times. Nick Chubb, of course, Aaron Jones, of course, and this is in no particular order. I was me just kind of thinking off the top of my head, and Joe Mixon. And I think Joe Mixon.
Wow! So you would drop Jonathan
Absolutely.
Taylor to
Absolutely.
mid second.
Yeah. And you know what? Maybe this is like one of those like personal hedges where maybe I wasn't really high on Jonathan Taylor and I'm looking for a reason to really knock him down. But really, when I look at it, it's not, because all those factors that we were worried about before are still in place with Nyheim Hines. Even Marlon Mack is getting, some talk. I'm still not overly concerned about Marlon Mack, but now when you bring into play that offensive line and the quarterback and this offense potentially running at a less efficient pace or running or basically, in less positive game scripts or less red zone opportunities, things of that nature, I have to drop him down, okay?
Dayo, where would you draft Jonathan Taylor given the news about this offensive line? Like, would you drop him as far as mid-second? Like, would you drop him that far?
No, I wouldn't. I would still probably take him early second. I would still probably take early second. After Gibson, I'm not big on – I don't even really want to say it, but I'm not big on Chubb as everybody else is. I like Chubb as a talent. I don't like the fact he doesn't get a lot of receiving work, and if you take away those touchdowns, of course you can't take away production, but if you do take away touchdowns, touchdowns are hard to predict. His numbers don't look as great. I still like Jonathan Taylor. Just to touch on Carson Wentz, y'all know how I feel about him.
Right.
So if you ask me, it might be an upgrade. They go to Eason or Ellinger. So
Don't go there.
Listen. By the
Ellinger,
way,
baby.
you were
Don't go
right
there.
about that. I told y'all about. I got into an argument with the guy on YouTube in the comments because he was like, he's only 28 years old, not 38, and then bam, the injury happened, and then I listed all of the prior injuries. I was like, listen, my man Dayo was right, man. Like, y'all need to listen to him. He's right. So I'm going to give you your flowers today.
I like Eason. He was a 4th-round pick last year. Still a young guy. Has talent. It's really about what's between the ears there, which we won't know until we see him in the game. He hasn't had really much game experience. I like Ellinger, a 6th-round pick this year from UT.
But the issue if he ends up winning the job for Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, he's a running quarterback. So he's going to...
He's a fullback.
Yeah, I know.
Playing quarterback.
He's like Dante Culpepper.
Go look.
Culpepper.
Go look up Ellinger calves. Just look up just type that into Google.
So for me, the offense may still be productive. We don't know. Offensive line is a slight concern. Fisher was already out of the equation from the jump, from the time we started drafting. So that's not really anything I would consider. The Kelly thing I didn't know about, but the way it sounds like he's coming back early. So no big concern there. Quentin Nelson is a concern. Not gonna disregard that. But the thing with Quentin Nelson meant they had one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. Without Quentin Nelson, are we now going to say they have one of the worst offensive lines, or just not the best?
They've lost pieces. I think this has gone underlooked,
but
especially from a running game.
That's what I'm saying.
They've
only really lost 2 pieces. One of those pieces we end up back by. We expect to be back by the season opener. So it's really one piece now. A big piece, probably the biggest piece, but it's still one piece. So I don't think they're going to become the worst offensive line. And the thing with Jonathan Taylor, I think a lot of people were buying not only his projected workload, but the talent. He's a very talented running back, and they're going to give him the work. Now, he might not get all the work, but again, we've talked about who gets all the work anymore. Right.
But can you really make a case for him over Joe Mixon, who's potentially a workhorse?
Joe Mixon got his ankle hurt today.
Healthy?
Really, yeah, he got his ankle hurt. But okay, let's look at it. Let's look at it. You're saying Joe Mixon, but we've heard reports today of Joe Burrow like struggling and running for his life because that offensive line is struggling. So
for Joe Mixon.
Apparently the offensive line in Cincinnati might be worse than the offensive line in
Of course.
in Indy.
Of
You know,
course.
so Jonathan Taylor has the advantage with the offensive line.
Yeah, but he's getting he's getting catches. He has no Naheem Hines.
Yeah.
That's the issue, is that you lose that efficiency.
Maybe,
And if you're losing
maybe.
it, this is all
But
I'm
Joe
saying.
Mixon's always had catches,
Yeah.
so that's not a new thing for him. And we were still drafting Jonathan Taylor over Mixon.
But that's because he was operating behind an elite O-line. This is all I'm saying.
But-
when
but-
it comes to Quentin Nelson,
Yeah,
okay, you know what would be interesting is to look at the splits or look at I guess he really hasn't
there's
missed
not going to
games.
be any splits. Yeah,
But that's going to be something that's going to be interesting. But pay attention to his timeline. Really do a deep dive into that. You know, we need to figure out.
I'll
when
tell
it's
you right
likely
now. I
he's
saw
coming
he
back.
had actually put out a tweet today saying he's going to try to get back by week 1. I mean, you know how players are.
Yeah.
But he put that out there, and we're talking about a guy. I mean, you know, with these players, people with that type of, you know, God-given talent or whatever, they do crazy things like Giannis.
Yeah, but this-
That's the third week getting Giannis into the conversation.
Right.
Anyway, but real quick,
You're going to force
But this is very different. He has a foot
right?
injury.
No, I get it. I'm just saying.
He's a foot injury, and
see
this
what
dude is
happens.
300 plus pounds.
But here's the thing.
And he
But here's the
makes a
thing.
living.
I got you.
But here's the thing: we were taking Jonathan Taylor before these bad beats in the mid first to late first.
I was not taking him there.
Not us, but that's where he was going.
Okay, so I'm telling you.
So
where
what
I'm
I'm
taking
saying
him
is now that we have this injury to the offensive lineman, because again, I'm only really considering one lineman is going to be gone. I would take him in like 1 round later. You know,
Okay,
the mid second.
so we're doing the same thing.
Yeah, mid second, early second, mid
So
second.
we're basically doing the same thing. The only difference is like my cutoff is
But
Joe
you're
Mixon.
bigger on Chubb than I am, and I feel like Mixon's probably right behind him. Still.
But I don't understand how you would take Jonathan Taylor over Nick Chubb at this
Because
stage.
again, with the thing with Chubb is,
Who's,
and I like
from a talent standpoint, from an offensive line
I like
standpoint.
Chubb's talent. I like his offensive line, but again, for me, I don't think he's going to get as many receptions. And I think with the PPR type setting, receptions are important.
He's in the same situation. He has
I think Jonathan Taylor gets passes though. Jonathan Taylor gets catches. I don't think Chubb does.
Chubb was getting catches. He had a couple of 5, 6, 7 target games towards the end
Yeah,
of last
but
year.
I don't want to bank on that. He's not that type of back, and they have a back that actually is the type of back to get a lot of catches. So
Well, let's move
that's my
on to
thing
more
there.
camp news, guys. Everybody was talking today about Trey Lance, about how he looked good in camp, about whether he's going about whether he's going to start week 1. Listen, we've already covered Trey Lance and Justin Fields about when they're going to start in this season. Do you guys want to amend your predictions?
Man, what I want is for people to stop drafting Trey Lance so damn early. I need people to stop talking about Trey Lance. I need no more highlights on Trey Lance. I literally got sniped. I call him saying sniped, but he went 1 pick ahead of me in a main event. Whoever was in that 2 spot, you know who you are. I am highly pissed. He knew I wanted Trey Lance. And the funny thing is I had, call me a hypocrite. I strongly considered taking him at the 10-11 turn. And the only reason that I did it is because this type of build.
10-11, I got you.
And the only reason that I didn't do it is because I had this very unique build where I ended up, I had the number 1 spot. Okay, so I can't complain too much. All right, I started off CMC, DeAndre Swift. You can have your arguments about DeAndre Swift and AJ Brown. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And there was just this incredible wide receiver run that went between the 3rd and the 4th round, where literally guys like Deontay, Godwin, Tyler Lockett, even Adam Thielen were all gone before the 4th round.
Mm-hmm.
So the next and last player in that tier was Julio Jones. And we've talked about Julio Jones. I know there's a stigma about Julio Jones. He's old, gets injured, and I know he's got the issue with the injury now. But when he's on the field, he's produced. Either way, so I ended up taking Julio.
Wait, so you got Julio and AJ?
I got Julio.
Did you get
and AJ.
Tannehill?
Exactly. So in the 10th round,
got Tannehill?
I got Tannehill.
Okay.
And so I had to kind of reach a bit for Tannehill, but I didn't want to mess around with the chances that I didn't get him. So I thought to myself, man, do I just get Tannehill and Lance?
Did you get Firkser?
Say what?
Did you get Firkser?
I ended up getting Firkser. Yeah.
Okay.
So I got a little.
Okay.
Again,
Okay.
this is not planned.
I see what's going on here.
It just happened that way. So I ended up with a little Tennessee stack. But so instead of going Tannehill and Lance, I ended up going Tannehill and Elijah Moore. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out throughout the season. But for this team, it made sense because for this team to really work, Tannehill has to produce in the passing game.
Yeah.
So this is kind of one of those situations where I don't
So
like
you
getting
started
2 wide
two
receivers.
Titans,
but
two Titans every week. tight
yeah.
receivers every week.
And the beautiful thing about it, too, is that they have a very late bye, I believe. And a lot of my players have the same bye. We'll deal with it when it comes to it. But they have a late bye, so I get to not have I get to basically try and find players off the waiver wire, to fill some of those flex positions throughout the year. But yeah, I'm still highly pissed. I'm not gonna lie. I'm still highly pissed that he did not. And literally, I thought he almost made it back to me in the 12th round, and then got sniped at the 11.
So let's stay on the San Francisco 49ers for a second. Listen, whether it's Trey Lance or Garoppolo, do you guys think that offense that's run-centric can really feed both Deebo Sanders and Ayuk?
Samuels? Yeah.
Samuels. Oh, no, what did I say?
You said Sanders, I think.
Oh, no, Samuels. Sorry.
Yeah.
Freudian slip. It's okay.
Right. Can that offense feed two number one receivers, and if not, who are you taking?
I mean, I think it can. I mean, I don't think they're going to be wide receiver ones, but I think it can. I think it can create a wide receiver 1, a wide receiver 2/3, and a tight end 1. It's historically, for the most part, done that. Even I think the efficient running game really opens up the offense to run efficiently. So meaning they can put up, quite a bit of yak with not that much required volume. I do think their defense is going to take a step up. They've already talked about wanting to run the ball.
Get better?
Yeah, get better. Oh, yeah.
After losing Salah?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll
a
be
good
big.
point,
We'll be able to see, but they're returning a lot of guys. So, I mean, they were bad last year because they had so many injuries to Bosa and whatnot. But they're returning a lot of guys from injury. So if they are healthy to start the year, I do think they're going to take a step up. Also, given their schedule, they have one of the easiest schedules. We've already talked about that.
We've talked about that playoff.
Not even just the
schedule.
playoff. I mean, just kind of throughout.
Right.
Like, they go up against, some, I want to say cake matchups, but matchups when I look at it, I can basically see potentials for turnovers. And that's really what we're looking at from a defense standpoint.
Gotcha.
But Dayo, if you had to choose one receiver in that core, who are you taking?
Ayuk. I'm taking Ayuk.
Why?
I like Ayuk. I've always liked Ayuk, though.
Yeah.
So since his college days, Arizona State, I'm sorry, with N'Keal Harry. But I've always liked Ayuk. Humongous wingspan, fast, deep threat, can take a slant into the house type player.
Yeah.
I think he has it all. I mean, he's the type of guy you put the ball in his hands. Last year we saw him jumping over players and stuff as a rookie. I mean, he has the total package. Deebo, I think he's more of a short area receiver.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen practice highlights where they kind of had him going deep, so I know they're probably practicing it with him, but he doesn't have the size.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's not I guess you could say he's stocky, but
It's like a running back almost.
yeah, he's more like a running back.
Yeah.
So running back type players, they get the ball in short areas and then kind of do the rest with their legs. Now, value-wise, Deebo is the value by far right now. Ayuk, I think, is going in the
5th round.
5th, 6th round. Deebo probably the 8th, 9th round, just kind of depending on what draft you are. And they probably are both going to be used similarly, but I think Ayuk probably can, out of the two, produce more.
Yeah.
Do I think they're both going to be wide receiver 1s? No,
Yeah.
because I think their wide receiver 1 is Kittle.
Yeah.
Well, at least it better be Kittle.
Right.
Where he's being drafted right now. If it's not Kittle, then we have some problem. But again, they like to run the ball too. I think Shanahan, and we've had this discussion before as far as how I think Shanahan kind of just uses any running back like a committee.
Yeah.
I feel like he just, anybody that plays running back,
Right.
as long as you're healthy and you're not tired, get in there and run the ball because his system is able to produce production any type of player. But I think really Shanahan's system is all about just get the ball to your playmakers.
Yeah.
Just
In space.
Everybody.
Misdirection,
Get
get guys in
playmakers
space.
all on the
Yeah.
field and just get them the ball.
Yeah.
Find whoever's open, find the mismatches, and get them the ball and let them do the rest. And they
Yeah.
all are the type of players that can
Yeah.
get the ball and do the rest.
Yeah.
So
I do feel like you need some shares of Ayuk, though.
I
Because
love Ayuk.
There is the potential that Shanahan reverts to having that dominant wide receiver 1. We've been hearing it in camp, the buzz. Again, take some of this, with a grain of salt to some degree, but when you hear it over and over and over again, to me, we talked about this 4-dimensional puzzles and we're trying to get pieces. To me, this is a small piece.
Deebo, a second-round pick.
Yeah.
Ayuk, a first-round pick, who they
Yep.
did what? Traded up to get. And
They
y'all know
traded
how I
up,
feel
and he
about that.
exactly a first round pick, and
Yeah.
apparently he's just been dominating camp.
Yeah.
So there is a potential that Shanahan reversed again, having that dominant number one, and Debo will still get his because it's still a narrow tree. When it comes to their targets, the thing that kind of gives me pause with that was, and why I'm not automatically clicking the button in the 5th and 6th round, is they have Kittle. When Shanahan has had that previous number one dominant wide receiver in the past, there was no number one dominant tight end. So something has to give there. We don't have a lot of shares of Kittle. I think we're both kind of just like hedging on his offense. If I can get these guys at value, great. If not, then, it's going to be tough. But here's the kicker. Going back to our previous discussion, Trey Lance. So when Trey Lance gets into the game, it's anybody's guess in terms of what's going to happen.
Right.
He's going to run.
Yeah.
That's going to take away from everybody. He's going
It
to
also
score a lot
might
of
open
passing
up for
touchdowns.
everybody, too,
And also,
though.
exactly. But what I think that's going to do is create some volatility. And so we may see more spike weeks. He's a rookie quarterback as well, so they may be a little bit more conservative. We've already been talks in camp in terms of like how they're running RPOs and design runs and things like that. So all of that is less volume for the running backs, less volumes for the pass receivers as well.
By the way, and I was talking to my friend that's, I always mention the San Francisco 49ers fan.
Who is this guy?
His name's Elliot, man. He was on the groomsmen too.
Okay, Elliot.
Yeah, Elliot.
Okay. Dayo talk about you like you just.
No, he's my 49ers expert. And
Like
for some reason,
we can't have discussions with Elliot. He'll send something into the group chat and be like, "Oh, my bad, that was meant for
Yeah, that was meant for
my
Elliot.
San Francisco
That's a
49ers
discussion right
insider."
there.
Like, okay,
No, he's legit insider though. He's legit insider. But anyway, I was telling him today, man, it's like it's like Twitter is like bullying Shanahan right now, saying put Trey Lance as a starter. Like they're like literally like bullying him. It's Shanahan every week. Every day. Garoppolo's doing great.
Yeah.
He's our starter. Lance is not gonna be the starter day one.
what was it? He got one rep, right?
Yeah,
It wasn't like he
one
got
rep.
like series.
No,
he got one rep.
They came out there.
And
So
then
when are you gonna put
blew
Lance
up.
in as a starter?
And I'm sitting here, we're in the 11th round in this slow draft, and I'm like, no, this is the worst thing that can come out.
Like it's crazy. Like even the 49ers, like Twitter room, whatever, they're putting out videos of Lance throwing these crazy. But I haven't seen one video of Garoppolo.
But don't forget, I said it a long time ago. You don't take a quarterback that high without expecting him to start early.
I don't think he's starting early.
Man, they took him too high for him not to start at least by midseason.
Yeah.
Well,
He
it
has
depends.
to
It
start
depends.
early.
It depends on what Garoppolo is doing.
I don't care what Garoppolo
No,
is
it depends on what Garoppolo is doing. If Garoppolo is successful, then Garoppolo is going to keep that.
This is
job.
what you got to ask yourself, and and I need to bring this up too, because this is what made me hot. This didn't happen in the main event draft. This happened in another draft. I'm taking Trey Lance when I draft someone like Justin Herbert, Tom Brady, etc. I'm not taking Trey Lance when I draft somebody like Lamar Jackson,
Russ.
like Josh Allen. I saw like. If you're going to spend a 4th and 5th round pick on a quarterback, you are defeating the purpose of taking Trey Lance. The idea of Trey Lance is that you are spending very little draft capital on acquiring a Konami running back.
Right.
Quarterback. And so you're kind of hedging. So you get your safe guy. You don't wait too long because quarterbacks these days, even in high stakes, people are realizing, even in high stakes, quarterbacks aren't going as late as they used to. So you get your, kind of lower tier quarterback. And to me, that's after you've secured your starting lineup. So you get a Justin Herbert in the 8th. And he's probably like the, kind of the end of
Calling
that.
Justin Herbert lower tier? Come on, man.
He's very lower tier. He doesn't even belong in that tier. That's a different discussion.
Crazy.
But even, and then someone like, maybe Russell Wilson sometimes, depending on how I feel because of how volatile. But I'm not spending a 10th, 11th, round pick on Trey Lance if I get a Russell Wilson. But if I get somebody like Tannehill, somebody like Brady, somebody, someone kind of in that tier where, upside, but not quite sure. But I really want that guy who could just really, take me home.
Yeah.
That's when I'll spend draft capital. But I think you're just defeating the purpose of drafting Trey Lance if you take him after you've already taken Josh Allen. And you're wasting a roster spot.
Yeah, you're gonna have that problem even if Lance does get the job. You're gonna have that problem every week. Like, which quarterback do I start?
Yeah, and no, you don't want to be in that situation.
Yeah, because you end up starting one that you feel like is in a better situation, and the one on the bench is the one that ends up scoring higher points, and you get mad at yourself, and you become frustrated.
Yeah, if you draft Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. Please don't draft Trey Lance. That's just being greedy.
They're probably drafting because they know you want him.
That's just
They're
greedy.
probably just like,
that's just being greedy.
Skywalker's in this draft? Yeah. I'm taking Trey Lance.
I don't care if I win, but you're not winning.
Right.
I'd be damned if we get 3 in a row.
So let's talk about the Raiders for a second. I want to talk about Josh Jacobs because it seems like Josh Jacobs is going after. I mean, I'm seeing him going, 4th round, Josh Jacobs, for a guy that gave us over 1,000 yards last year. Is he being disrespected as a running back?
He is, but this is tough because of where he goes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think we're going to start to see a change in this. I think we talked about this last year, or maybe we talked about it in the group chat, that we're seeing this shift in the board. And so I'm myself am even having to change how I, draft my 1st and 2nd round pick. Before, you were able to get guys like Tyler Lockett, Adam Thielen, even Cooper Kupp in the 6th round, late 5th at worst. Okay? Now those guys are going in the 4th round like we talked about. So it was hard back then to draft a guy like Josh Jacobs in the 4th and 5th round when you had such elite talent, because you were having to pass on Mike Evans, Robert Woods, Amari Cooper. You don't want to pass on legit wide receivers like that and take Josh Jacobs. Not that I don't think that he's deserving of that. You start off wide receiver, but then even then it's still hard to pass on another wide receiver in that round. So now we're seeing him go in the 5th round. So now I think we're getting to a point where, yes, it's probably being disrespected, because if I start seeing guys like, if it's between OBJ and Josh Jacobs, I'm taking Josh Jacobs.
Mm-hmm.
Now again, roster build and construction, it really is dependent on that. But to me, I view Josh Jacobs as that running back that I can start more weeks out of none, but I'm not going to plan on having him being a fixture in my starting lineup. And if you can play it that way and you can get a later running back, now instead of maybe drafting what you consider a running back 3, or what maybe some people consider a running back 4, which I think is ridiculous, but now if you get that later running back that you can pair him with to some degree.
So you're saying a running back 4 is ridiculous. So you don't start 4 running backs, 2 flex, 2 starting running backs?
No, I'm saying if you're viewing him as a running back 4, like not a running back 1, So say you get him, you draft him as your RB, say you just draft him as your, in that range in the 5th round. If you draft a complement running back with him, then in essence, if you play it right, and again, this is tough, but if you play it right based on game script, based on matchup, now you don't have an RB3. Between these 2 RBs, you have potentially a low-end RB1. So that's kind of how I view him.
Okay. Wait, do you see Jacobs getting more passing work this year?
No, but you don't. But again, if you're playing,
so you see him as a 2-down back
who gets a lot of carries and goal line work. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Dayo, tell me, what do you think about Kenyon Drake? Because that kind of touches on where I think we need to go. Do you see Kenyon Drake as taking some of those carries from Josh Jacobs?
Yeah, I do. Not just the carries, but the receptions. I mean, we're already talking about a running back that's not getting a lot of passing work. You're going to bring in another running back who they say they're going to give him a lot of passing work. So Jacobs already wasn't getting much of it at all.
That's baked in. He wasn't getting it last year.
Right. The stat I said last week was he had 1 target on 3rd down his whole career. So yeah, it is already baked in. But then we're acting like Kenyon Drake hasn't shown that he can run the ball. Regardless of how he looked recently, he may not have looked good, but he's looked good before. He can run the ball. And Gruden seems like the type of coach where if he starts to like one of his players doing well, he'll start to give him more work. And Jacob hasn't been a guy that's really just blown the top off, his opportunities. He's been a guy that's kind of looked suspect.
Yeah, I disagree with that. I think Jacob's been very, very good behind a kind of suspect O-line. I don't think Kenyon Drake is good at all in between
still
tackles.
Suspect. And Jacobs he's been average at best. That's why he's being drafted where he's drafted now. So
I understand that, but people keep saying that Kenyon Drake is going to come in and take work away from Josh Jacobs. You forget that Devin Booker is gone.
Right.
He's taking Devin Booker's carries. He's not really taking.
But you
Josh Jacobs'
don't pay a running back the type of money they gave Drake to just be a.
Oakland
Devin
does
Booker.
a lot of crazy things. They drafted Henry Ruggs at the top overall wide receiver and used him as a decoy.
But they weren't paying Booker the way they were paying Drake. Booker was signed from the Broncos, so they didn't give him that type of Drake money. And I never seen Gruden showing any type of love to Booker the whole time he was on that team. Gruden and Drake are sending each other love letters this whole offseason.
Eh.
So it's a totally different situation. And again, we're talking about a running back we've seen be successful. Booker's never been a guy we've looked at as being a talented or a great running back. Drake at times has done it. He won people fantasy leagues in 2019, so we know he has the capability. So a lot of things are starting to slide against.
How many head coaches have just let Kenyon Drake go? No, we're not paying you. We're going to trade you. We're done. Trust you with the role. Doesn't look like you can do it.
Okay. Let me answer that question. Let me answer that question.
And I'm talking about
let me answer that question. When he was with the Dolphins, he was producing, but you remember that was the time period where the Dolphins. That was the time period where the Dolphins were getting rid of all their talented players, and you could tell they were doing a rebuild. They were literally trading guys for picks, their whole roster.
He was never getting run there.
Drake was one of the guys they traded during that time period.
I don't agree with that. His entire time in Miami, they never gave him a lead role. Even in college, he never got a lead role.
You just mentioned the fact that the coach got rid of him. I'm trying to tell you, the time that they got rid of him was the time when the Dolphins were basically getting rid of all the players on their team.
But even when he was there, they did not trust him with the workload.
I'm not talking about trusting him with the workload. I'm talking about them getting rid of him, because that's what you mentioned.
My whole premise was that head coaches seem to have an issue with Kenyon Drake.
During his entire time in Miami, they had an issue with him. Let me finish. Flores and them just got rid of him around the time they were getting rid of all their talent. When he was with the Cardinals, again, he had a good end to the season, and then they tagged him. They gave him the transition tag, which paid him top 10 running back money. I think it was $8 million last year.
How did he look?
He didn't look great. But what I'm saying is the coach still felt they wanted to transition tag him. He didn't look great, so obviously he didn't earn that second contract. But what did he end up doing? He ended up going to the Raiders, who gave him another pretty good contract.
Raiders give a lot of people contracts.
But what I'm saying is he's been put in situations where he's been successful. Coaches have obviously won him. Gruden, we know, wants him. And the Cardinals wanted him enough to give him that tag. The Dolphins, again, that was a different discussion. But again, they were getting rid of all type of talent at that time. We don't know what the Raiders are going to do with Drake. But what I'm saying is what we've seen them do with Jacobs, it's not been impressive. And now you add this other player that we know has had success in the league. You can't just say, okay, let's just ignore this guy.
I'll put a gentleman's waiver on this. Gentleman's waiver. Okay.
Right.
Gentleman's bet. If Jacobs plays at least 14 games, he's going to have over 1,000 yards rushing. He's going to have over double-digit touchdowns, and he's going to have over 20 receptions.
20 receptions?
20 receptions.
There's 17 games, so you're saying just 1.5 catches a game?
I'm giving you the stats. So a running
20
back,
receptions, 1 catch a game.
Okay, but
a little bit less.
You're not drafting this. You're not. Remember, people were thinking of 2020 when we were when he was getting drafted in the back end of the first, early second. You're drafting him in the late fifth round. So if there's
I never said I wasn't drafting Jacobs. Of course, it's going to be about value. I'm talking about why I feel like Drake is a threat to Jacobs. I'm not talking about ADP or drafting him or whether I would draft him. As far as me drafting him, it's all going to be about value. And that's the case really with any player. I've seen Jacobs go in the 6th round. You damn right I'm taking him in the 6th round. That's a great value. I've also seen him go as early as the 4th round. I'm not taking him in the 4th round.
I completely agree.
5th round is a place I'm really like saying, do I want Jacobs or do I not want Jacobs? And most likely I'll probably say I don't want Jacobs. But again, if he falls to the 6th, I'm going to definitely snatch him up because, again, by that point, you have five starters. You don't need Jacobs to be a major producer. If he is, that's going to be a major benefit.
We're saying the same thing. All I'm saying is that, like, if you want a back that's going to give you over 1,000 yards, 20-plus receptions, double-digit touchdowns.
I'll take that wager, by the way.
In the 5th round?
I'll take that wager.
You take that wager?
I'll take that wager, yeah. Oh, you got to give me more like 30 receptions. Come on. It's 17 games, 20 receptions. That's like 1 catch a game.
But all I'm asking,
you are getting an extra game.
Look, all I'm asking,
20
receptions. I said
14.
All I'm asking is, I said if he plays 14 games, that means if he gets injured and he's a running backs never played the full game slate.
That's like less than 2 catches a game. That's like nothing. Come on, man. As a starting running back,
he had 33 receptions last season.
But
Come on, man. Give me 30 receptions.
Let me ask it this way: if you're in need of a running back and there's a running back that you think will get you 1,000+ yards, double-digit touchdowns, and 20+ receptions, is he worth drafting in the 5th round?
Yes.
I don't know if I'm drafting in the 5th round. It's going to be about my roster construction.
Okay, I just said if you need a running back.
I don't know.
Okay,
I really don't know because I don't like Jacobs prospect. I don't like his situation very much. So when I'm building my teams, I might be in the 5th round where, yes, I need a running back, but I probably want a high upside running back.
This is my thing.
Running back that I think is going to be able to give me a high
If
ceiling.
he gives you double-digit touchdowns, that makes him a top 10 running back.
I don't think he's going to.
This is the last thing that I was saying about Josh Jacobs. Nothing has changed with Josh Jacobs' situation. Kenyon Drake is not taking away receptions from Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs never
I don't know how you could say that, though.
He never got receptions to begin with.
No,
Okay, so when he's in the game,
you said Drake is not taking the touches from Jacobs.
He's not taking them away from. No, he's not taking them away from Josh Jacobs.
I don't know if you can say that, man. I don't know if you can say that.
Because guess what? Josh Jacobs was never someone who was getting receptions. It was
but
either
I'm not
Jalen
just talking about the
Richard
receptions,
or
though.
one of those guys.
I think Drake is going to get carries too.
I think they may start off giving Drake carries and they're going to say, "Oh, this isn't working. Let's give it to the better back."
We'll see.
And Josh Jacobs is clearly the better back.
We will see.
People forget how talented he is. They're about to get reminded.
We'll see.
All right, guys. Listen, we actually get football this week. This Thursday, we get our first NFL football game.
Yes.
When you guys are watching preseason games, what exactly are you looking for, and how does that affect how you draft?
Oh, man. So this Hall of Fame game, I probably won't be watching much. I think the first thing you need to do is figure out, are the starters, the majority of the starters playing? That's number one. It's good to kind of get a good look at the backups and things of that nature, but you want to get a good sense. And so ideally the game is where both starters from the offense and defense from the opposing teams are playing. First thing I always look at are the line, okay? I try to get a good sense of, okay, are they getting a push, especially if it's a suspect O-line like the Steelers. If they trot out their projected starting 5, that is the main thing that I'm going to be looking at. I just need to know that they're not going to be absolute trash, okay? Mm-hmm. I don't need them to be great. I don't need them to be like mowing defenders over. I just need them to be able to hold up. If I can see that they're holding up, then I'm happy with that. And then I'm looking at, okay, from a running back perspective, who has burst? Especially if it's a veteran, okay? Because for me, I want to be able to draft a player that has burst to start off. Because if you don't have burst now, if you don't look like your legs are there now, what's going to happen, week 10, week 12 into the season? So to me, that's very, very important. So someone like Mike Davis, okay, I need to I'm going to be looking at, okay, how much burst does he have? Things that I don't pay attention to, okay, somebody creates a wide open hole and somebody runs for 70 yards, could care less. I care more about those tough yards. So who's breaking tackles, okay? Who's getting skinny through the hole? Who has vision and is following his blocks? So especially, that's important, I think, for the younger running backs. That's something that we didn't get last season, okay? But now that we get that this season, now we can actually see Javonte Williams on an NFL level. Is he, does he have good vision? Is he able to shut out blockers like he was in the college? Same thing with the Najee Harris. How do they look in between the tackles? You can just see it with certain running backs. So I'm looking at that. And then I'm looking at quarterbacks. Who are they looking to first? Not targets, not production. Where are their eyes going first? Because number one, that's showing, okay, this playbook design targeted this wide receiver in the progression first. And two, the quarterback may have a favoritism towards a certain wide receiver. So it's something that if it's if it's 40, 30, 25 or something something along those lines, maybe not a big deal. But if it's 50, 60%, okay, that's significant. Or if you see a quarterback that just has this propensity to dump it down or target his tight ends, those are key. So again, I want to see where are they looking. And this is the nice thing about preseason. It's usually not the entire game where the starters are playing. Right. So you can really go in
and just
on those
watch
quarters.
Just 2-3
specific.
drives.
Yeah, if you don't want to get too in depth with the backups and things like that, you can really go in on the starters, and then you can record as many games as you can and go back, rewind. Literally, to me, I think preseason is very, very key. But don't look at stats. Don't ignore box scores altogether. Okay, you got to watch the film.
Dayo, does preseason matter, and what are you looking for in these preseason games?
So I kind of disagree with pretty much everything Avi just said regarding preseason games. I think they give you barely anything at all, especially the way preseason is done now. I don't think a lot of teams are really going to be playing their starters in these preseason games. I feel like these teams now think that the practices and the what do they call it when they go with another team and practice, joint sessions or whatever, I think they feel like that's where they really get their best looks. And they use the preseason more so to look at the depth on the team, the backups. I definitely don't see these teams using their real plays or the plays that they're going to actually utilize mostly during the season, during preseason, because they're not trying to put it on film for other teams. I don't think like running backs are running as hard unless they're rookies. Now, we're not talking about the young players. We're talking about the established veterans. I don't really think they really show what they're really going to be. So for me, preseason is really just entertainment. It's really just football's back. I'm enjoying watching football. One thing I do like to pay attention to is the rookies, because that's their first taste of NFL action. They're the ones that are going to go hard or all out. They're going to try to show the world this is how good I am. You end up seeing these young rookies who probably you didn't hear much about because they weren't big names in the draft, but then you see them actually play a game and like, oh, wow, who was this player? So I might go back and look a little closer to them. But as far as what I gain, as far as how I value players in drafts, in those 20 rounds that we're drafting now, FFPC, there's not really much I take from it at all. And here's the thing with preseason. Back before this year, there was always 4 preseason games, and the way it would be that first game would be maybe the starters play one drive, and then the rest of the game is backup, and then game 2 probably mostly backups. Again, it's dependent on the team. But then game 3, they would have their starters play, and back in the day, it used to be the first quarter, the second quarter, maybe a little bit of the third quarter, then the backups finish the game, and then fourth preseason game, it would be no starters. It would be all depth players because they were basically trying to cut the roster down from 90 to 53. I think it used to be like another number, and then a week like 60 something, then 53 by the end of the training camp. Now they've taken away a preseason game, so I'm not really sure where teams are going to consider playing their starters in that 3-game preseason schedule, because before it used to be again the third game. Are they going to do it on the third game now, the last game, or are they going to do it now the second game and use that third game to really see all their backups? I don't really know. There might be a thing where they say, look, we don't want to play our starters at all. Again, we've seen what we need to see in practice in these joint practices. Let's just see what the backups do in a real game setting.
Yeah.
So again, I don't really put much at all in there.
We said the same thing. I don't think you heard what I said initially, which is
you were saying watch. But again, even if the starters play, I don't think we're really seeing anything from there. I think it's more so these starters.
I'm not looking at plays, but if your starters are playing, if your starting O-line is playing, they can't go 75%. You can't afford to go 75% as an offensive lineman, because if a defensive lineman is going 85% and your star quarterback is back there, like they don't have the luxury of getting there and say, okay, guys, let's go like 3 quarters. That doesn't happen. Okay. So to me, if the starters are playing, I'm looking at the push on that offensive line. So some teams aren't going to play their starters. You can probably anticipate the Rams.
What if one team is playing their starters, their offensive line is going against the backups of the other team?
It's just like in everything we talk about when it comes to fantasy football on this podcast, it is situation specific. Yeah. So that's why I'm bringing up specific situations. For me, question marks like the Steelers' offensive line, even someone like the Chargers' offensive line. We're just assuming that they're going to be so much better, but there's a lot of new pieces. How do they gel? I need to see this offensive line not look like complete trash. Those things to me are important.
I don't think you really get that from preseason. I mean, you may feel you can, but
I feel like I've gotten that in the past. So if the starters are out there, to me that's important.
Yeah. I don't get anything from it at all.
So speaking of getting anything from it, Dayo, do you focus more on some of these beat writers and camp reports, or are you focusing more on actually seeing the videos, seeing clips yourself? Like, how are you evaluating these players? And do you think camp reports are worthless?
I don't focus on any. I don't really focus on any of that stuff, man. I think it's all biased information being put out. And with all these reports, especially on Twitter, you're seeing really the highlighted players that people want to hear about. You're not seeing everything. You're going to see, like we were saying, Trey Lance. Everybody's going to put the Trey Lance tweets out there. But Garoppolo's getting a lot of reps too. Probably he's getting more reps than Lance, and we're not really hearing about what he's doing. That's going on across the league. You know, there's probably players that are doing well that we just never hear about because these beat writers are really only focusing on certain players.
Getting clicks.
Yeah, and even with the videos, you know, the videos are only going to show these high end or the players that people want to see. You know, so it's all biased to me. For me, at this time, I more so like to get information as far as what I like to call actionable information. You know, what are players that teams signed? Who's getting injured? Maybe who's like the consistency somebody's going with the starters as far as running team drills. You know, things like that. Things that you can't put your own personal bias to. You can't say, oh, that was a great play. It just is what it is. You know, those are the things I really want to pay attention to. And I think it's a lot of noise that occurs right now. So I really just ignore all of it, really.
Yeah. AB, how do you decipher from the actionable news and the fluff?
I think you can't ignore it. I think if you just ignore it all, that you're doing yourself a big disservice. I'm going to use the analogy, I don't like to talk about work or anything like that, but coming up, you know, throughout medical school, during residency, one thing that we always had to do was stay up to date when it came to, journals, relevant articles, etc. And before you can even start, reading an article, you had to first learn how to critically appraise it. And there were various things in it because no two studies are alike. You may have one study that's like double-blinded, randomized controlled trial, highly powered, meaning just like thousands of patients, where you have another study that's more like anecdotal, like my clinic, patients, from my clinic only, maybe 20 patients, and they're both studying the same medication. Well, clearly we're going to go to this larger randomized controlled double-blinded study. And even within that study, you still have to go through and assess how they came up with their methodology, how they ran their analysis, how they came up with their statistics. All of that is important before you ultimately come to the decision on whether or not you feel like this medication is safe enough for me to give to my patients, whether or not I feel confident that this is something that I want to, incorporate in my practice. So when I go through all of this information, I don't want to just completely ignore it, but what I want to do is actually dive into it, and I want to go to the source. So I think it's important to avoid just seeing the clips. For example, I think there was a clip today, Darnell Parham is getting increased workload. Well, they just lost Henry, okay? Yes, they brought in Jared Cook, but guess what? If you actually go to the article, and anybody can get a subscription to The Athletic, where these, a lot of these reports come from. There's actually, a paragraph in there that talks about how 4 different tight ends are getting run with the first team, okay? So I think getting all of the information is important than just kind of completely ignoring it. And another one, this is a clip that, we sent out to the group chat, was Brian Edwards. And we remember back from 2020, that was the kind of late round sleeper who skyrocketed out, was getting a lot of buzz. And so he's resurfaced, and he resurfaced because John Gruden, there was a clip of him, and I don't even think they played the video. It was just a clip that said, oh, Brian Edwards looks like Terrell Owens.
Yeah.
Now, if you actually put that in context, if you actually go back, and you can go back, it was, I think, on NFL Network, go back and Google the clip. The question was specifically, okay, who are the other guys for Derek Carr? Who else needs to step up? And what he did was he listed a number of different names. He listed Henry Ruggs, felt like he was making strides. He mentioned Brian Edwards and said, he's like, yeah, and Brian Edwards, and look at him. He looks like Terrell Owens. He looks like, one of those number 1 wide receivers. He didn't say that he is Terrell Owens. He said he's basically saying he has the build of a number 1 wide receiver.
Right.
But then he said, and then we have slot receivers. We have Hunter Renfrow and we have Willie Snead. And then this is what just got completely X'd out and didn't even get mentioned. He said, who I'm really excited about was Foster Monroe. So he listed out 5 or 6 different names, but he said who I'm really excited about and who he ended it with was Foster Monroe, getting him back from injury. Monroe. So all of these things are important to put in context. Go to the source. I really like to just go to the entire beat writer's article And again, like to Dayo's point, a lot of that stuff is fluff. You got to try to ignore the opinion pieces where they're like, "Oh, this was a great
It's
throw."
personal bias and confirmation bias. So.
But some of them are detailed. Some of them will give you.
Okay, but let
like,
me ask you this: do you see something or any kind of tweet, report, whatever? Does that make you then change the ADP or where you're drafting a player?
a lot of these do not change ADP majorly, but this is where you can start to
So
find
it sways you a
sleepers.
little bit.
It depends. It depends on the report. So, like for instance, a lot of times when I'm going through these reports, I'm looking for something specific. Okay, like for instance, let's take into an example the Philadelphia Eagles. When I'm going through these beat reporters, or through the reports, I'm looking for which wide receivers are getting run with the ones.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm looking for which tight ends are getting run with the ones. I'm also looking for what type of formations are they running. Are they running 12 personnel? Do we see Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert on the field at the same time? Or are they just running a lot of 3 wide receiver sets? Because I think, we all kind of maybe anticipated they were going to be running 12 personnel, but that may not be the case. So there's only one tight end on the field. Who's the majority? And so we've already been hearing reports of Jalen Hurts throwing passes to both Goddard and Ertz. So this is an issue where it's a rotation. So now I have to pull back on Goddard, and we already know the reports that Ertz, at least at this point, is not being traded.
Yeah.
So now I know I'm not going to be like reaching for Goddard.
See, that's the thing. I don't look at reports like that and then say, okay, well, let me now start to consider Ertz as being more of a threat to Goddard, because when I'm initially evaluating these teams and these rosters, I already take stuff like that into consideration. Ertz was never traded. Ertz was still on the team. There was a chance Ertz can be moved, and that kind of allowed me to kind of determine where I had Goddard's range. But like we said last week, I'm not a big Goddard fan regardless. For me, where he's valued is baked into the fact that he can probably be the sole tight end there with Ertz gone, or he can be sharing the tight end room with Ertz. So nothing that I'm reading now is now going to make me say, okay, now let me start to change the value of where I have these players.
To me, it's important if they're not running 12 personnel and one tight end is going to be on the field.
But that's the thing. That's another thing. I'm not. I don't truly think that what these beat writers see at practice, because first of all, they're not at every single practice, but what they see at practice is going to be the 100% authentic truth of what these teams are going to do in season. Now, I do think teams work on things and they probably see what they're working on, but that doesn't guarantee that when week 1 comes, what they saw in practice week 1, week 2 of training camp is going to be what the team
100%
puts out there out on the field.
100% agree with that. We talked about that with the Saints.
So that's why I don't hear what these beat writers are saying and say, okay, let me now view this in a different lens. Because again, for me, when I'm initially evaluating these teams, before I heard anything from a beat writer, I've already looked at the roster. I've already kind of made my determination on the talent of all these players. I have the historical perspective of what they did last year. I take a look at the new pieces and I kind of get a feel of what I think the team was trying to do in the offseason, and that's kind of how I make my values.
But like you said earlier, you still want to know who's running with the ones.
Right. I said that's where I want that value. But again, but that's what I also said was actionable news.
So take that for instance with the Jets, for instance. Okay, yes, what we're seeing is just what they're showing us, but we're not seeing a lot of 12 personnel. So a lot of us kind of thought maybe this was going to look something like the Shanahan offense.
I didn't think that.
Okay, that's fine. But a lot of the fantasy community thought it was going to look like the Shanahan type offense. Okay, if you look at where LaFleur came from, maybe we thought that maybe they were going to run a little bit 12 personnel. What we're seeing, we're not really getting a lot of 12 personnel, and really, from the beat writers' reports, no tight end is really, getting a lot of targets.
And that's the point I'm trying to make. I can't look at that and say, well, they're not running much 12 personnel, so most likely they won't run 12 personnel. You can't run with information, but I'm not going to just completely ignore it. So basically, having a little bit of information to me is better than just saying, okay, he said that the beat reporter said they really haven't run much 12 personnel. I think it's hard.
Still important.
I think it's hard for us as laymen looking from a distant lens to really determine which teams some of this information is more valuable than others. I think we can make guesses, we can assume, we can take a look at what they've done in the past, but one team might be showing what what they're doing in practice as far as what it's actually going to be like for them in the season, and another team can be showing a certain thing in practice and do something totally different in season. And I don't think we have the ability to determine which of those teams are being honest and which aren't. So again, for me, I only pay attention to actionable news because you can't put a bias there. It doesn't matter which way you view it. It is what it is. If a player signs with the team, he signed with that team. You know, it's not a thing where one beat writer can view it one way, another beat writer can view it another way. The guy signed with the team. If a guy gets hurt, the guy got hurt. That's actionable news. If you tell me, oh, this player looked great today, I don't really take much from that, because another writer can say, oh, but this other guy looked great today. Like we were seeing, a perfect example was the Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater type tweets.
Oh, yeah.
One guy you would hear say Teddy won the day, or he had a great practice. Another guy, Drew Lock won the day.
But so you're taking one comment. What I don't care about that comment in terms of who won the day. What I care about is, Lock went 4 for 11, and he missed on this row. He missed on this row. He targeted such and such. And I'm not just taking that in a vacuum. I'm taking all of these pieces and making a best educated guess.
But look,
does it move his ADP by 6 players? No.
So you
but
get
it's still
that
important.
But you get that practice information. You just said you get that he went 4 for 11. He made this throw X, Y, and Z. What do you then take from that information?
It's different for every player. You're making it sound like, okay, you hear a beat report, so now I got to adjust my ADP.
No, I'm asking you. What do you take from that information?
For every player. I'll give you another example, and this is why I give specific examples.
No. Stay with the specific thing you just said. If you hear Drew Lock went 4 for whatever, and he threw these certain type of passes, or he looked a certain type of way, what exactly do you get from that information?
It's not just that. It's a string of those informations.
Okay.
So if I got they say they practiced for 6 days, and I got 6 reports that Drew Lock was, had a 40% completion percentage.
Okay, what do you take from that information?
And Teddy Bridgewater had like an 80%.
And what do you take from that information?
So now what I'm assuming is that at this stage that Bridgewater is leading that battle. Is it a final? No. Am I gonna be shifting ADPs quite a bit? No. Every draft is different.
See, the problem with that for me is that, to me, is not telling us anything, because at the end of the day, the person that's going to win the battle is who the coach chooses.
Yeah, but again, these are objective things. If he's telling me that he went, I can't be at every single camp. I can't assume that I know everything based off of all the acquisitions.
Right.
I need help from somewhere. So I'm trying to get as much objective information as possible.
But what I'm saying
even if it's a small piece, and I can't change anybody's ADP even by one spot, I want that information.
But what I'm saying is, you were mentioning that he was going 40% completion rate, or all these statistics. What can you really gather from them statistics? Because no matter what the statistics say or what they did in practice, at the end of the day, it's all going to be what the head coach or the offensive coordinator, whoever determines the depth chart, whatever they decide is the best player for the job.
And they're going to decide that based on his play. So again,
but we
it's
can't
connecting
say,
dots.
But we can't. First of all, we can't guarantee that they're going to say.
Nobody's guaranteeing anything.
So again, if you take all these statistics, I can't take these statistics and surmise. Okay, well that means this is going to happen.
Nobody's doing that.
So that's why I don't value it at all. It doesn't give me anything.
It's fine to have a different philosophy. What I'm saying is I'm not going to completely ignore it. To me, it helps out. Even if it doesn't move ADP, I want as many points as possible. Again, I want as many pieces to the puzzle so I can try and get a clear picture. Here's another example. New York Giants, okay? They brought in Alfred Morris. The immediate assumption is that Alfred Morris is coming in because Saquon's not injured. But when I go through all the beat reports, I keep hearing about how Devin Booker has not really looked very good in camp. So am I changing anybody's ADP? No. But in the back of my mind, let me finish. If something comes up, if we start a preseason game and the Giants decide to run out their first team offense, obviously they're not going to be playing Saquon. And instead of seeing Devontae Booker, I see Alfred Morris. I already had in my mind, I already knew that was a potential. And now I can do something. So it's one of those things where it's a piece. Does it mean that every little bit of news changes? No, that's the important part of taking these pieces.
I get what you're saying, but what I'm saying is, if it's not actionable, I don't put value on it. It's really that simple. I can't say
It's not binary.
I can't
It's not
say
binary. It's a
that
spectrum.
the way that these beat writers are reporting how these guys practice is then going to give me the conclusion of who the guy the coach is going to pick, because that is a subjective decision made by a guy that we really don't know what's going on in his head.
Can you make the assumption that the quarterback or the head coach is likely going to choose the best player for, at whatever said position to be the starter?
But statistics and,
but can you make that conclusion?
But statistics and bet is not synonymous. You're
Okay.
basically saying you're saying I need to take these statistics and
No,
use
I'm
that
not saying you need to
information.
do anything. I'm not saying that.
But
I'm not
focusing,
saying that.
But I'm focusing on
I'm not saying that. You want to be binary with it.
But
It's
look,
not binary.
I'm focusing on the statistics because that's the example you gave me. You're telling me that if they're having a certain completion percentage or they're going X for Y, whatever, in practice, that I need to take that information
I did not say that. That's not what I said. I said if Drew Lock is throwing 40%
Yes.
completion,
You're giving me a
completion
statistic.
yet for 5 practices in a row.
It doesn't matter how many practices, it's still
it does.
statistic.
And Teddy Bridgewater is throwing at 70%.
So
and
you're
they say Teddy Bridgewater looks good.
But you're giving me
and Drew Lock
statistics.
looks bad and he's throwing a lot of interceptions. Then yes, I'm going to make an assumption that that they're likely being accurate in their assessment, and that the head coaches and the offensive coordinator are likely seeing the same thing, they're likely favoring Bridgewater at this point.
You still utilize statistics. That's the point.
That's
I keep
just an
making.
example. That's an example
So
of that particular
I
one.
don't take statistics from what they did in practice and use that to now determine what I feel like is going to end up being a certain way. Coaches have their ways of making these decisions. We don't.
Obviously.
Every coach is different. We can't just say because.
Are they not going to take it into account? Are they not going to take it into account? Because you're making the
there-
assumption that they're not going to take it
there's
into
no
account.
context whatsoever in what we're saying. All we're saying is they went 40% and another guy went 70%. There's no context in that.
I laid it out. I said Drew Lock went 40% during practice over the last 5 days. He has not looked good. He's throwing interceptions. Let me finish. He's not looked good.
But look good is a subjective comment.
Let me finish. This is one beat reporter saying this. And Teddy Bridgewater, conversely, has thrown for 70%, has looked good.
That's another subjective comment.
Exactly. It is subjective.
So, but I don't take that.
So what's more likely? What's more likely, that the head coaches are seeing that Drew Lock is playing bad, or that the head coaches are saying, and those statistics don't matter, and Drew Lock is still even par with Bridgewater? What's more likely? If you were a betting man.
Literally, more likely has nothing to do with any of this. Because what at the end of the day.
Let the viewers.
Let me finish what I'm saying.
This is what the group
No,
chat
let me finish what I'm
sounds
saying. It doesn't matter with what's most likely, because
It does.
you're in the medical field.
It does matter what most likely.
We always say it doesn't matter whether it's rare if it's in your chair.
No, I do not say that.
Just because
I do not say that. I don't chase zebras.
Can I finish my comment?
Okay, go ahead. My bad.
Again, just because it's not likely doesn't mean it's not going to happen. You can say something happens 9 out of 10 times. That 10th time can still occur. The coach might still see it a certain way. So again, I don't look at any of this statistics or what a beat writer is going to say they feel like a player did to make my determination what I think the outcome is going to be. All I look at is what actually happened actionable wise. Not talking about statistics, but actual what the team did, and that's how I kind of come to my determination. If you do it differently, that's fine. But if you're asking me whether I value practice reports, beat reports, these videos, these highlights, these statistics that people are throwing out there, no, I don't. I don't at all. So, I mean, again, I was going to give the example of Trey Lance, and we mentioned that before. We're seeing all these Trey Lance statistics. We're seeing Garoppolo statistics. Trey Lance, according to the statistic, is doing great. All his teammates talking about how great he is, but the team is still saying Garoppolo is the quarterback. So again, we don't know what each coach is going to do. I'd rather just see what has been done and then make my determination from there. That's all I'm saying.
I'm not disagreeing with you, and I think the Trey Lance situation is completely different. I don't care about the highlights. The statistics that have been put out in that situation, I wouldn't make any summary. The only reason I draft Trey Lance is because I see talent there, and I see someone who could potentially be a league winner. Right now, in terms of who starts, how many games he starts, I don't know. I've already said, I'm on record of saying that if I am willing to draft Trey Lance in the 12th.
I was using Trey. I wasn't specifically talking about Trey Lance. What I'm saying is that's an example of certain things happening in practice one way and the coach's mind being a different way.
And I'm not disagreeing with. But getting back to your point where you said 9 times out of 10, we don't know that 10th common. I'm betting on the
No,
9
no, no,
times
no,
out
no.
of 10.
But you said what's
I'll
most.
bet on the most likely.
And that's fine. You can bet on it, and that if that's the way you approach it, that's fine. For me, I don't say this is what I expect to be most likely, and I'm going to take that information and then just run with it. Because me, I look at everything with face value. Like I always say, I don't care about being first. I care about being right. And if being right takes a little bit more time, then I'll be patient with it. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, we drafted now. You can't be that patient.
You can be patient. You can be patient. You don't have to draft now. You can wait to draft till you can actually draft after the first game of the season. So you can draft
but I'm
whenever
talking about
you're
in
ready.
terms of ADP shift. The quicker you are on a player, or at least can anticipate their rise and get them at value, the better.
But
I was getting Tyler Lockett, and I keep going back to this, getting Tyler Lockett in the 6th round.
But again, for me, nothing that I'm hearing right now is making me sway any of my ADPs whatsoever. So the way I was drafting 2 weeks ago is the same way I would be drafting now, unless somebody gets hurt, then obviously you can't draft them. Or
I've had some changes. Yeah.
Or it's a situation where somebody like I wasn't on Herndon, but I know a lot of people were on Herndon, but we're hearing Herndon is not getting the reps with the first team at all, and he's looked bad.
No, it's not with all. They've all not looked good. But that's,
okay, but again, that's maybe something that would make me sway my ADP.
Elijah Moore is like I've swayed my ADP on Elijah Moore.
See, I haven't really swayed mine at all with all that. So
I mean, certain things have changed for me.
Yeah, that's not the case for me. That's all.
Yeah.
I see why Matthew Berry blocked you now.
Why'd he block me?
I see why.
Why?
He don't care. 9 out of 10. I don't care.
I don't care. 9 out of 10.
See,
I'll take 9 out of 10.
I don't even be on Twitter like that. I don't know what that was about. Because I don't even be on Twitter.
Matthew, please. Why did you block my man?
No, I mean,
don't block me.
I don't care.
You know, I'm blocking Matthew Berry. I got you. I'm blocking Matthew Berry.
I'm
blocking Matthew Berry.
He's had me blocked for I think a couple years now. Like I don't care.
I'm blocking Matthew Berry.
I don't care. I just that when you brought it up that
I'm
day,
blocking him.
I was like, oh yeah, that guy. He has me blocked.
It doesn't matter.
Some random person gonna send this to Matthew Berry. He's gonna be like, who are these guys? Who are these random jumpers?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I don't care.
Guys, I think that's it, man. Like we've gone through the show. This is episode 10, 1st and 15. We're out.
Yeah.
Every episode. Every episode.
So first off, the Jalen Hurd update. He missed a couple days, but he's back. He's getting some team drill work. So I definitely like that.
For what? Redraft?
Jalen Hurd?
For Dynasty?
Everything. You know me, I kind of mix it all together.
Okay.
I just want to know who these guys are, because he could be a waiver ad at some point. I was gonna say our hometown guys, Nico Collins.
Yeah,
He's looked pretty good. Don't sleep on Nico. And it's really a lot of these young wide receivers that were taking.
Has his ADP changed for you?
Who, Nico?
Are you willing to draft?
No, I was taking him like in the 19th, 20th round, maybe 18th. Earliest.
Are you willing to take him more often? Because we're not taking him every draft.
No. Still same way. None of these values change for me.
Okay.
Jacob Harris is back, so we definitely like that. But again, I was gonna mention, look at these rookie wide receivers that are going really late. Diami Brown, Terrence Marshall, Rondell Moore. Look at these guys, man. Those are the guys that end up returning a lot of value because receivers they can actually produce pretty well in their early years. So just kind of want to put that.
Don't forget
out
about AJ Green either. Okay.
Can we end the pod?
Go ahead.
Let's do it.
This is episode 10. We're out for this.
That felt like a short episode.
I said, God, give me a warning. Please take me for the morning so I leave more disappointments than I ever will appointments. Give a